Hello and welcome to Gardening Naturally with Green Fingertips with me, Josie Rainbird, your natural gardening coach. And today we are talking about what type of soil have you got in your garden, different types of soil, how to recognise them, how to identify what you've got in your garden, and the benefits and how to condition and how to make that soil work for you. So let's get to it. Well, I've noticed by this point of gardening that all soil is the same. There's various different sorts of soils that you can get from clay, chalk, sand. So they all act differently, they all work differently. They all provide different benefits and different challenges for your plants. And knowing what type of soil you've got will also help you to know what type of plants you can plant in your garden for best results and for a happier and healthier garden. But there are also ways that you can condition the soil that you've got to create something more nutritious and will support more of a range of different plants, will improve drainage and will improve the way it holds nutrients, add all sorts of different benefits into it as well. So what the soil that you've got now, if it's not working quite how you'd like it to, if it's not supporting the plants you've got in your garden, there are ways to help you, so it's fine. So let's go through the different sorts of soil to start with and then how you can condition them up afterwards. So sandy soil. So it's quite gritty. It is like sand. It's quite gritty, loose. It won't clump. So when you squeeze the soil together, it doesn't stick. It won't hold moisture. So nutrients tend to get leached out quite easily. So it doesn't hold a lot of nutrients. So one of the benefits I will say for sandy soil though is it isn't prone to waterlogging. So as much as it's free draining and it won't hold nutrients, it also won't waterlog and won't hold the water like clay soil will, and it won't then kill your plants that way. So if nothing else, that's a benefit I'm going to take. So a really good way of conditioning this type of soil is in the springtime to dig in lots of organic matter from like homemade compost, leaf mould, well-rotted manure. Things like this will then improve the structure of the soil, the way it holds nutrients and holds water, and then it will make it a much better environment for your plants to grow and thrive, and more things can then grow in that ground as well. So that's a really good way of conditioning the soil. But yeah, springtime's a really good time to start on this, but with plenty of organic matter. So clay soil. So clay soil is quite, as you imagine clay, it's quite claggy, quite clumpy. It holds together, it's slide and slippery and smooth. When you squeeze it together, it kind of sticks and it doesn't have a lot of air between it. It's not very aerated and it's clumpy and there. It can hold nutrients. They do hold nutrients, clay soils. Fairly fertile. Clay soil doesn't drain very well. When it dries out, it dries hard. So it creates a pan on top of the surface, which is like a real compacted top to it. And then it will crack when it's dry. So it dries out really hard and there's cracks. When it rains, it turns to mud really quickly. To say it's not very free draining, so it won't drain through, but when it does dry out, it does dry out hard. So it's not very workable, shall we say. Not a very workable soil. Not the best. So a really good way of conditioning this soil up would be you want to dig in plenty of coarse grit, horticultural grit, organic matter as well, like as we said, homemade compost or any kind of compost really, leaf mould, rotted manure, anything like that. And the grit and that mixed together will open up the structure of the soil, improve the nutrients and how much the nutrients it can hold, and will improve drainage as well. So it's all going to go towards improving the whole structure and how the soil acts. So chalky soil. So chalky soil, you can quite obviously see is chalky soil. You can often see chunks of chalk in this soil. It's quite an obvious soil, this one. It's quite, I'm going to say, inert. It's not very fertile. It can be quite free draining. Most stony soils can be quite free draining. The chalky soil can often be quite an alkaline soil as well. So you may well need to adjust the pH when you're conditioning. So conditioning can be in the same way, lots of organic matter to dilute down the chalkiness, if you like. You may well want to improve with a bit more of maybe an acid compost in there to adjust the pH. You don't want to go too extreme and then make the soil more acidy, but you might want to adjust the pH. Sometimes just using organic matter will do this. So it's a good idea to check the pH before you start conditioning and then after and see if you need to adjust anything further on that front. But organic matter is a really good place to start when conditioning because it has good drainage generally anyway because it's a stony soil. It's just you've got to watch the pH. So lots of organic matter. That's a good place to start with chalky soil. Now, peat-rich soil. Peat is quite protected and we don't use any peat compost. In fact, I make my own compost, so I don't use any peat compost. But if you have peat soil where you are, you will know because it's quite dark, quite rich, and you can smell a very earthy smell to it. So peat soil can be quite prone to waterlogging over periods of time. So when you're conditioning it, you will need to add in something to aerate the soil a bit more. When you're digging in the organic matter to dilute down the peat side of the compost, if you like, you can also add in some horticultural grit as well to break it up and aerate the soil. The organic matter will also help to regulate the pH as well. So you can do the same with the chalk soil. You can check the pH before you start conditioning and check it after, and then see if you need to carry on adjusting it accordingly. You can add lime or chalk to neutralise it a little bit more. And with an alkaline soil like chalk, you can add in like an ericaceous soil, which is an acidy compost as well, and that will just ep up the acidity in the soil a little bit. But I would recommend checking the pH before you do anything, otherwise you could be adjusting it backwards and forwards all the time and it'll be no good to anyone. So conditioning down peat soil would be a little bit of horticultural grit in there to aerate it and then break the particles of the soil structure apart to help with drainage and prevent waterlogging, and then the organic matter then to improve the fertility and the way it holds nutrients. Improve drainage, again, like with the horticultural grit, and to neutralise pH. Really good type of soil to have in the garden. It's kind of an all-rounder. Be a loamy soil, so a loam soil. So a loam soil will be, again, quite rich and dark and crumbly. So when you pick it up and you squeeze it in your hand, and it'll clump together and it'll stick there. But when you go like that, when you crumble it, it falls apart nicely. It's just the perfect soil. Very fertile, very high in nutrition for the plants as well, free draining and doesn't waterlog very easily, which is great. It can hold moisture, but it will drain as well over time, so that's good. So to condition this type of soil, you shouldn't need a lot of work involved in it. Organic matter is a really good conditioner for this, for loam type soil. So like with all the soils, organic matter has got so many benefits that it can improve and add to any kind of soil structure. It helps to improve drainage, it helps to improve nutrient content, it helps to improve the absorbency of the soil, so how much moisture it holds onto, as well as how much moisture it lets run through. It prevents leaching of nutrients as well, which is really good, especially with sandy soil or stony soils. By conditioning any type of soil with organic matter, will benefit the soil so much and will really put extra condition into it. So like I was saying with the chalky and the peat soils as well, testing different areas of your garden also makes a difference. So different areas might be higher in acidity to others. So when you're conditioning one area, you can't just assume the next area that you do is going to be the same. So when you're going around and you're digging beds and you're conditioning the soil and you're just improving the garden as you go, keep checking the pH, keep checking the structure of the soil, and keep checking it as you go, because different areas of the garden might be completely different to the others. So it all depends on the history of your garden. If you're new to your garden, if you're not, if it's always been your garden in your family, you kind of will have an idea of the history, so it kind of gives you a heads up. But if it's a new garden to you, you won't know the history. You don't know what's been planted there before. You don't know what if in the garden, if it was a garden before. It could have been anything, it could have been woodland. So you don't know the history of it. So by checking the pH as you go, checking the soil condition as you go, you can adjust your conditioning strategy accordingly. So I hope this has helped you today, and I hope you learned something. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. But if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, so it helps the YouTubes show my videos to more people. And it makes me feel happy that I'm making good content for you. So yes, I have a video right here for you all about conditioning soil, so you can check that out as well. So if you like that, if not, I've got plenty more videos in my library for you to check out. So I hope you enjoyed this today, and I will catch you in my next video.